All right, so now let's talk about using chords that are outside of our diatonic scale. Now, we already know about our diatonic chords using all the chords from the major scale, right? But now what about other chords like D flat, E flat, F sharp, A flat, B flat, you know? How can we use some of these chords in our playing? Well, you can kind of just, the first step is, just play around with it and see how they sound. Now, what you might want to try first is use a neighbor chord. Now, a neighbor chord is a chord that's right next to the chord that you're on. So let's say that I'm going to use my one, I'll stay with root position chords. 1, 4, 5. There's my flat 6, 4, 5, 1. Right? Now, that's an interesting sound. If I did 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5. That's an interesting one. Now, once we start putting inversions to this, you can get some adding the ninths and stuff. You get stuff like. So you can see, we're going to really start to expand upon that. But I wanted to play that for you, not to show off, but to kind of like let you hear that, sometimes when you're doing it like this, it sounds like, that doesn't really sound all that great. But the point is that when you start to expand and use these different concepts, these different techniques, that's how it starts to really sound nice. Right? So the first step, like I said, I'm going to talk about some common outside chords in a second. But the first step I would say is try figuring out, and using those neighbor chords. Right? They can be majors or they can be minors, right? Or even augmented and diminished. Right? You can try those as well. But I would start with the simple ones like major and minor chords. So, if we're in C. So here I went to C and then I went to B flat minor. What if I went to like, I don't know, of interesting sounds that you can come up with. The key is when you approach the chord, right? And I mean like approach it, like play it. Don't don't like really jam into that chord. Just kind of like ease back on it nice and sweet. The other thing is don't be afraid of the sound. A lot of times a student, they'll play a chord, and they'll be like, they'll start doing this where they're like moving all over the place trying to find the right chord. When you know what, if you just play the chord and just let it sit, right? Don't move to another chord just yet. Let it sit, and then do that progression again. So you see how by playing a progression, more than once, you start to train the ear of the listener. So then they're like, oh wow, I like that. That's interesting to my ear now. All right. So have fun with those neighbor chords, and just kind of letting those chords sit, and playing some of those chords outside of the key.